surprise and be a little bit closer to the playoffs than we expected. I mean, Florida, that's Joel Canville is Joel Canville. Let's give the guy his due. He's one of the best coaches in the league, bar none. Tampa Bay, even with the loss of Savard and Gord, they still have the best goalie in the world in Andrei Vasilevsky. And Nikita Kucherov can still score 50 goals if he wants to. Boston will always remain a tough team to face and whatnot. But Scott, I mean, what do you think like is missing? Are we missing something on this team that will really send this team like over the edge and being like, all right, you know what, I'm just spitballing here. Like there was a lot of rumors with Jack Eichel, for example, and stuff like that. I mean, do we need that kind of sentiment to come in and being like, all right, cool, now we're a force to reckon with. Now we'll make the playoffs, and that's the end of the discussion. What do you think?
Plus, the argument nowadays in the NHL is, do you need that big star to really push your team over the edge? And in some cases, yes, and in some cases, no. There were teams last season who played really, really, really well in spite of not having any true breakout players. I mean, going back to what you said about Joel Quenneville, well, the Florida Panthers had some guys who were breakout stars. Then you have guys like Mason Marchment, and I mean, who can forget Ryan Lomberg, who gave Florida probably the biggest playoff goal they've seen since 1996, in that in-game sending the series against Tampa to Game 6 in overtime. And I feel like Montreal can play into that similar mindset where they don't necessarily need a big time star player to make the playoffs, because if they abide by the same formula that worked for them in the postseason, which was, playing as a team and swallowing up chances defensively and getting those occasional goals offensively, I feel like they can be a force to be reckoned with. They have an offense that is very well balanced. It's missing obviously some defensive pieces like Deneau, but you have Mike Hoffman and Tyler Toffoli on the opposite circles on the power play, and then you can have some defensemen on the options too. I mean, Weber's gone, but maybe a guy like Chris Weidman could step in and be a sort of offensive option from the point, gain limited minutes. That worked really well with Marc-Andre Bergeron in 2010. Even though he saw very little ice time, he was effective when called upon. And I feel like Montreal just has enough guys on their roster where they can definitely fight for a playoff spot. And in my mind, this team isn't too dissimilar from 2018-19, who fell 2 points short of a playoff spot. So honestly, I think sky's the limit for this team. I'm just excited to see all these new guys who they acquired come through.
All right, so now that's 4 against 1, Elias, by the way. And you know what? I think we're about to make it 5 against 1 because Sam, the man, Mendelsohn, has joined us. Welcome, Sam.
Hey, guys. How are you?
Very good, man. Don't worry about it. I'm really, really happy you got to join us. Sam, we're going to do a quick recap here because I know everyone who's listening is probably like scratching their head, pulling their hair, dyeing their beard. Like, I need a break from this. What are they talking about? So Elias started the show saying the Canadiens are not making the playoffs. He's saying that we lost Deneau. That's it. We're screwed. We don't have a number one center. Outside of Suzuki, we got nothing. Now, there's been a lot of debate saying, hey, our power play has gone better because of Mike Hoffman. Our defense is still going to be really a really tough team to face. You know what? I'm really curious to know what you think. Are the Canadiens making the playoffs?
Well, sorry, Elias. I'm going to make it 5-1. I'm going to say yes because, firstly, I'm going to let everyone know that whatever Maria writes, it just happens. So if you read Maria's article the other day on A Winning Habit, you'll see that she had Montreal in third, Tampa Bay in second. I said to Maria, you have Tampa Bay and Montreal in the first round? She goes, yeah, I think I do. I guess so. And, it's you could take it both ways. I honestly think that Montreal, if you're a soccer fan, you understand the group of death. Well, they might be in the division of death this year because I think Ottawa is going to start creeping up on people. I think that they're going to, be a much better team than they were. And you certainly saw some glimpses of that near the end with Stutzel and Connor Brown and Matt Murray had some really great games. You look at the rest of the division, and Florida's a playoff team. Toronto was a playoff team. Montreal was a playoff team. Tampa Bay and Boston. And outside of Detroit, which I think we can all agree on this panel that they're probably the worst team in the league, everyone legitimately has a chance. Maybe Ottawa is a little bit on the outskirts as well, but everyone has a chance. And at the max, I just don't think every team in the division is going to make the playoffs, let alone, more than 3. So what does Montreal have that the other teams do? And someone's probably already said it, but I'll say 2 words: Carey Price. And we know what a healthy Carey Price will do when the time is right. I mean, thank goodness, MB, Mark Bergevin, played the wild card of wild cards and said, hey, we're going to keep Jake Allen on our expansion roster. Carey Price, Seattle, you really want him? He's got injuries. You'll never see him play. He's got a max contract. He's old, all these things. So Seattle stepped back. Oh, by the way, Carey Price, he'll be ready for game one. And
what a bluff, huh?
What a bluff. I mean, talk about Daniel Negreanu, shout out to the greatest poker player of all time. You know, this guy, he read the other team's hand. He read Seattle's hand and said, I'm guaranteeing you that you will not take Carey Price. And I think at the end of the day, as someone who played goalie in hockey, but who watches the game of hockey, Scott just mentioned Andrei Vasilevsky, probably the number one goal in the league. Price ain't that far behind. I know we came short of the Stanley Cups, winning the Stanley Cup, singular, not plural, but this is a team that, even without the big presence of Shea Weber, this is a team that grew so much. I mean, I looked at Nick Suzuki from the beginning of last season to where he finished in the Stanley Cup Game 5, and I thought this guy is arguably in the conversation to be next year among the top 5 centers in the league. And for that reason, I think that the argument of they don't have a number one center. I mean, you look at St. Louis a couple years ago. Who was their number one center? Ryan O'Reilly.
Ryan O'Reilly.
He's the number one center in hockey. Probably not. Would you say he's in the top 10, maybe 15? I don't even know if that's even the case, but they were built well enough with a good goalie from the back out. Montreal, they added another guy in Savard that Scott mentioned, and probably a couple other people touched up on. They built that defense, and I love what Romanov's doing. I'm excited to see his growth. You know, Weidman comes in with some experience from the KHL, in which he lit it up from an offensive standpoint. So I think they've added the right pieces. So do they win the Stanley Cup? That's a whole different conversation. But I think to make the playoffs, I think, to be honest with you guys, and I'm not being biased here, I think they're better than Toronto. And if that's the case, then there's maybe one team, 2 teams out there that's better than them, guaranteeing them a spot in the division. You know, I love what Florida's doing, but if Spencer Knight's not the goalie midway through the season, then they've got a big problem. You know, Tampa Bay, they're the cream of the crop. So there's obviously no arguing there. But outside of that, Boston took some big hits. You know, they're not the same team. Anyone know who their goalie is? Because I just Googled it before I came on to this panel. It's Linus Ullmark. It's not Halak.
He's actually really good.
It's Jack
He did well in Buffalo. He did well. Okay. To do well in Buffalo, you have to be good at something, right?
It's the Buffalo
They have
team
no
that
defense, and he did well.
Buffalo team that dressed
Buffalo,
him credit.
Sebastian.
He was
Boston gave him $5 million for the season. Like, I feel like that's a huge overpayment on Linus Ullmark.
He did well in Buffalo. What do you mean? Give the man 10.
He did well on a Buffalo team that dressed Michael Hauser.
Okay, let's settle down. This is a Canadiens battle, not a Sabres bashing battle. We got all season to mock the Sabres. Now, Elias, dude, you're screwed, buddy. I'm sorry to say it. I'm going to say it directly. You've been beaten 5-1. No one thinks the Habs will not make the playoffs. I mean, the argument for the power play has been given, the PK as well. Now, Sam joins us and says, hey, we got Carey Price, even after I said that it doesn't matter if we have Carey Price because we got Jake Allen as probably the best backup in the league. The argument for the center doesn't seem to bother anyone because we got 5 or 6 people that are aiming for a spot. So it seems that the general consensus is that this is going to be a team that's going to be winning by committee. It's going to depend on the games. It's going to depend on the matchups. Obviously, the coaching staff is going to have a huge job at task to really manipulate their lines as much as possible every single game. So, you know what? For the final minutes of this segment, before we move on to something else, Elias, last chance, buddy. Do or die. I mean, try and convince us, why this is not happening again this year.
Okay, I'm going to go back to a segment that I wrote in my article. I'm actually comparing them to the Ottawa Senators. If you actually compared the Ottawa Senators' second half of their season to the one of Montreal, Ottawa Senators actually had a better second half of the season. They actually got more points in the second half than Montreal did. So when the worst...
So what? The fact of the matter is that on paper, Montreal is a better team. They made the playoffs. They went to the Stanley Cup Finals. And Ottawa is in rebuild. You can't compare Ottawa to Montreal, man.
The game is on the ice. It's not on paper.
Oh, you know what, man? I'm about to take this game to the street with you. Elias, Laradi, thank you very much. This is an amazing segment. We're going to move on to something else. Now we're going to join Sebastian High and Scott Cowan, our prospect heroes, Man, that's actually a really good nickname for you guys. Prospect Heroes. That's dope. I think we should start every segment like that. Prospect Heroes.
Like that.
That's amazing. All right, guys. You guys have a lot to talk about as well in regards to the Laval Rocket. Again, there's been a flurry of signatures. A very interesting team is being put on paper. Consisting of a lot of AHL veterans in quotation as well. Also, a brand new coaching staff is behind the bit, replacing Joel Bouchard, Alex Burrows, etc. Burrows, by the way, who's going to be back behind the Montreal bench for the next 3 years. I want to start with something a little weird, and I know you guys see this coming because the question mark has been thrown around left, right, and center. Can we talk about Michael McNiven requesting arbitration? What's up with that? Like, why would an AHL player go to arbitration?
Michael McNiven is one special case for the Canadiens organization, not because necessarily of who he is as a player. McNiven has been through the ringer in Montreal, to say the least, and this organization has put him all over the map. They've always struggled to find a place for him in their organization, and things finally seem to be working out a little bit better. But to be honest, I was just as shocked as anyone else was when he announced that he was filing for arbitration, because as for people who most people in the Canadiens, most Canadiens fans should be aware of who McNiven is. He's played for Laval for the past couple of seasons. He started playing with the team back in 2017, and he's been there ever since. And I think the thing that is important to consider regarding McNiven is that he had to fight, like always, to get a start in Laval's crease last year, because Laval was kind of juggling a 4-goalie system with Vasily Demchenko, Charlie Lindgren, Kaden Primo, and McNiven, and eventually him and Primo won out in the end. It was still a battle, though, and I feel like McNiven, a reason why he could be filing for arbitration is maybe because he sees a better deal elsewhere in Europe, or maybe he wants to move over to a league like Germany and the DEL and get a chance as a starting goalie there. That's my best bet, honestly, for the time being.
But does that kind of write him off right away as an NHL prospect?
No, I think Michael McNiven is a very talented AHL starting goalie. He's never making the NHL. That's my own personal opinion, and I don't mean to sound sort of, how would you say, very direct and to the point with that. But
negative, maybe.
Yeah, negative. I just don't feel like McNiven really has that NHL potential in him. He was a very talented goalie in the OHL with the Owen Sound attack, but I feel like his ceiling, we've seen it by this point.
Yeah, I kind of agree on that. I think McNiven relies a little bit too much on his athletic ability and less his ability to read the play to really make the NHL. But I hope he proves us wrong. I'm very confused by him filing for arbitration because he's played 71 NHL games, AHL. He's played 0 NHL games, but 71 AHL games, and his save percentage is an .895. I don't see how an arbitrator could give him any more money than any typical AHL deal, and I don't really see why Bergevin would let him go to arbitration. It was just a bit weird. I mean, I know Laval also has Poulin in goal now too, so they don't really need McNiven. They have Primo, who's obviously going to be the starter, and with Poulin, who has NHL experience and is Québécois, he seems to be the backup. So I don't think McNiven is really going to stick around in the organization for very long, but yeah, I don't know.
So the other big news coming out of Laval was the entire change of coaching staff. Now this obviously with the shocking, not shocking departure of Joel Bouchard, call it what you want. Laval went ahead and hired Jean-François Hull as their head coach. Martin Laperrière is going to be their assistant. Former right winger Kelly Butchberger. I'm sure maybe Sam might remember him from his days in Edmonton. And Marco Marciano is also coming back as the goaltending coach, whom we've seen help out with Montreal at the end of last year. What do you guys know about these guys? I mean, for the people out there, that these are names that are not necessarily, aside maybe from Butchberger, for the really, really hardcore hockey fans of a certain age. I mean, who are these guys? Are they going to be making an impact? What should we expect? I mean, what's your take on these hirings?
I thought the situation with Joel Bouchard is definitely one that a lot of people didn't really want to see happen, because Bouchard has been unbelievably useful to the Rocket, and he's probably been the best head coach Montreal's affiliates have seen since the days of Don Lever with the Hamilton Bulldogs when they won a Calder Cup all the way back in 2006. Bouchard put a system into Laval which just rewarded guys for working hard and coming to the ice every night with the same intensity, which is why guys